All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm very excited for my guest speaker today. Henry Eisenstein is an entrepreneur. He's a businessman. He's a friend of mine. And I actually was a guest speaker on his podcast going back a couple of months. And I have been looking forward to having you on board here, Henry. How are you doing today?
Doing amazing, Murray. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm in Boston. Henry's in New Jersey. So we're both here on the East Coast on the same time zone, which is unique for us, right?
Yeah, I was going to say we've seen each other on every coast, it seems like.
I know, and it's going to continue as the travel starts again in about a month. We're going to be heading out to Arizona for the winter, my wife and I, and I'm hoping that we're going to see you and Simone out there. Speaking of Simone, congratulations. Henry is newly engaged and very, very excited. This young woman is not only an amazing person, but an entrepreneur in her own right. And congratulations for you and Simone, my man.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It means a lot. You guys just missed it. You guys were in California, then had to leave.
I feel like I was there. You guys did such a great job on social media. I mean, thank goodness they didn't have that when I got engaged to Susan, because it would have been completely a mess, just a hot mess. It didn't look anything like what you had prepared. So, I mean, I was just like, man, any guy that sees this is just going to be like, how am I going to top that? That was unbelievable on the beach and the roses and the pictures.
It was not easy.
It was unreal. Well, congratulations on that. Your deal. First of all, everyone knows our podcast. We love to talk about residual income. That is one of the passions that we have behind this podcast. And I know that you are a terrific business guy, but you chose real estate as your forte. And man, I mean, I'm just looking at your background and your bio and looking at over $120 million of real estate that you've personally been involved in your short life. Hey guys, Henry's in his 20s, in his mid 20s. So he's a young guy. He's killing it right now. Tell me, what was it that attracted you to real estate? And if you can, just a couple of tidbits on what you're doing to be so successful in that market, especially in everything we've been through in the last 2 years.
So, I mean, I never thought I'd be on the investment side. That's not really why I got into it. I got into it on the sales side as an agent. And I had a friend of mine who lied to me about how much money he was making. And I was like, wait a second. It's like, if he can do it, I can do it too. Didn't work out the way I thought. And I ended up quitting the business about just under 2 years into it. I quit the business because I was just fed up with how I was treated, the money I was making. I couldn't get any traction, and then built my own team about 3.5 years ago. And I ended up becoming just surrounded with.
So back up just a second. You got in the business like so many real estate people. You go through the process. You get your license. It's a big commitment. There's money up front. You get into it, you're completely disenfranchised with what you thought it was and what it was. You leave the business. What made you go back after that experience?
So I went to a Tony Robbins event, and I had a coach from Tony Robbins who was, thankfully, he said some magic words to me that basically was along the lines of like, listen, I was 23 years old. I had 5 separate companies at the time. None of them were doing any business, but I got to put entrepreneur or serial entrepreneur in my Instagram handle. So that's all that really mattered. But all I wanted to be was rich, right? And I had all these different businesses because it was the grass is greener effect, the shiny object syndrome. So I tried everything from drop shipping, Amazon FBA, clothing brand, all this kind of stuff. And my coach basically said to me, sat me down, and he's like, Henry, what successful entrepreneur that you study today started 5 separate, 5 companies at 23 years old and ended up becoming wildly successful? He's like, I'm like, no one that I ever studied. And he's like, exactly. You have to focus on one thing for a decade. And I promise you will see results. And in that moment, I knew it was real estate. I still remember where I was when I heard that information. I had made about 300,000 in gross commissions the year before in real estate, but about 90% of it went to somebody else. Because of a bad deal that I signed. So I knew that if I did it for myself, I could be successful. And then, within about a week of that call, I had I went back into real estate and started my own real estate team.
Wow. So let me unpack that just a little bit. What got you back into real estate, you knew in your heart and in your mind, it was a powerful industry. and you had a bad taste in your mouth over the way that it went down in your first attempt to be successful in real estate. You made a bad deal. We all do that.
Yeah.
Every successful person I've ever talked to or interviewed, same thing. Something happened and it changed the way they had to have their perception of what they were trying to do. So your mindset changed. You listened to that person that was from that positive, motivational aspect of how to build a business from the Tony Robbins class that you went to.
Yep.
And then the person told you concentrate on one thing for a decade. Wow. I mean, you don't hear that a lot. Concentrate on one thing for a decade. For me, it was always just concentrate on one thing. We never actually put a time limit on it, but when you put a time frame on it, it makes it more real. Like you're not in this rush to have success overnight. You know that you're building a future.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that you said is it wasn't just you at that point. You started building a team. So I know from traditional businesses that I've owned, and of course, I'm in the network marketing business, which is team building. I have a financial services company. I've built hundreds of agents in financial services, and I've been a financial advisor myself. Taking care of yourself and motivating yourself is easy in comparison to building a team. So how did that work out for you? Did you get that right the first time, or did it take a few times before that started to work out?
So again, I started my team at 23. So I knew nothing about building a sales team. I was a general manager for a kids party place. I managed about 40, 50 employees at the time, but so I knew hiring and firing and I knew management, but I definitely didn't understand building a sales team. So basically how it happened was I showed up to a couple meetings at the office and I kept getting award after award after award for my production. And I just attracted a bunch of young sales guys. And they were sort of just saying like, hey, Henry, what are you doing that I could do? And I just took them under my wing. And that's sort of how we started. And I still remember we were sitting at a conference table, the three of us, and we would just smile and dial for hours, for months, and that really, that went on for almost a year.
I laugh and smile right now. We're actually recording this for YouTube and social media with video right now. We also, our podcast is typically just audio, so you'll be able to see it in other places. And I'm looking at Henry's background, which looks like a checkerboard, like there's black and red boxes everywhere. And all I'm thinking of as I'm listening to you is everybody else was playing checkers and you were playing chess. You had the long game in mind when you started building the team, even though maybe psychologically at 23 years old, most of us are not mature enough at that point to literally handle all the different personalities that you have to deal with when you're building a team. But it seemed like, just from what you described, that it just didn't take too much time for you to understand how to motivate people so that they could get what they want and you could get what you wanted. And I know from listening to you for long periods of time, we've had some great discussions offline, that you have a system down that is extremely, I guess you could just say it's streamlined. And I love that. So talk a little bit about how you were able to streamline a system so that you basically have systematized your real estate business.
So I think that a lot of people forget that every department of your business is basically a business. And things like lead generation is, that department needs to be run like a business.
Yes.
Your recruiting and, the way that your processes around, they call it the back end support, needs to run like a business. Your recruiting runs like a business. Your client services run like a business. So it's like, each department needs to run in its own fashion. And, I was taught that, really old school on a piece of paper, really just to give a start line and a finish line. And you kind of need to devise if you had, I was taught if you had all the money in the world, what would it look like? And obviously, and then, you have like your grand vision, and then it's sort of like, what can you do today implementation wise and start?
Get
right?
one step closer. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's sort of how I've been planning everything, and I definitely haven't ever reached that ultimate potential of what it could look like. But, again, if you do a halfway decent job, most of the time that's good enough. and at least to get you far, to a certain level. And obviously I'm always trying to improve, but like, it doesn't have to be perfect. There's no, I feel like a lot of people get caught up in the paralysis by analysis thing because it's not perfect, you know?
That's absolutely true. I know Henry, guys, as a businessman and as a friend, but I can tell just by the way you talk that, first of all, he's a gentleman. He's extremely generous. And I can just tell by the way you talk that you treat your people right. And I think that that is probably one of the keys, is knowing what it is, what it takes to build a team, is respect for other people. Obviously, you're a businessman and you're in business to make a profit, and that's important. But you take it to a level of respect for people and helping them get what they want and what they're going to achieve, and know that everyone has limitations. And I mean, how do you handle issues? I mean, you're not into drama. I can tell, you're very even keeled, but when drama happens, how do you handle it?
So, I mean, I think that we're basically firefighters. As the CEO of our own business, we fight fires all day long, most of the time. And I say that with a smile on my face, because we get to deal with that. We get to, we're blessed to have these problems per se. And I think the drama, listen, if it's a client issue, I don't like to say the client is always right, but you definitely treat them that way. Because we are blessed to have them in our life, and you need to treat them, no matter what they want, there is a solution. And 9 times out of 10, even if you're going to lose money, it's definitely worth covering your brand. And I always believe that whatever you can do, you should do to make things right with the client, no matter what. And again, I've lost money on deals just to make things right. I'd rather save face than anything else. And you don't know who that person knows.
I love it. All right, I'm going to play a game with you. You have 2 meetings tomorrow. One's at 10 o'clock, and it's a big closing that you've been working on for months. And one's at 2 p.m., which is a brand new appointment to show a big piece of real estate to a new person. The 10 o'clock comes, and hour and a half into this closing, the deal blows up. It's just not happening. Can't agree. There were some things that just didn't get worked out, and the whole thing's blowing up, and it goes south. I know how you feel already. I feel bad. Now it's 2 o'clock and you're meeting this new client. How do you handle that appointment? Or do you just postpone it, do it another day, and say it's not a good day for it? How do you handle it?
I think that, no matter what, I might have a little bit biased of a thing because typically I'm not doing those own client appointments, but I would say that no matter what, I need to make it right with my first client first.
How would you guide someone, one of your team members, if that happened to them?
So I mean, no matter what, I think you stay with the current client to make sure things are handled the right way, because that relationship is key, and I think more often than not, listen, the next client will understand that maybe something came up, and you tell them, like, listen, like, I want you to know that no matter what comes up in your file, we're going to make it a priority. And or again, thinking just to make sure that I handle everything correctly, I'd probably just pay somebody to open a door or whatever I can, just to make sure the other client has somebody there. But no matter what, I would stay with the current client just to make sure I handle problems.
Brilliant. What an answer. Guys, you hearing this? This is unbelievable. I mean, these are lessons that honestly, you learn these earlier in your career. Whatever it is that you do for a living, it's going to be nothing but helpful down the road. I'm going back and looking at some of the things on your resume, and I noticed you're a 2-time college dropout. I have a special place in my heart for you, because I went to college on my own. I couldn't afford to go to a 4-year school. I put myself through community college for a couple of years. And frankly, I felt like I needed to just get out of there. Like, I wasn't getting what I needed. I wanted to get out into the real world. So I was working and going to school part-time. What was it about college that didn't fit for you?
I mean, all of it, really. I mean, I knew from a young age. I knew from about 7th, 8th grade or so, I knew that I didn't want to go to college, and my family pushed me to go. And to me, I mean, look, I was, number one, I was bullied for a number of years. So I was like, why would I want to continue this? Why would I pay to have this all continue?
So you had a rough childhood. You weren't, like, it wasn't easy street for you. You had some issues growing up.
Yeah, I was bullied for a number of years where, it kind of turned into depression and suicidal thoughts and other
Oh,
things that, definitely spiraled out of control in some aspects of my life. And look, it definitely made me stronger as a kid. And I mean, for college, really, I mean, I just looked at it like I remember sitting, and I went for business management and accounting. And I remember sitting in my business management class, and I was already a GM of a store making, 40, 50, $60,000 a year. And I'm sitting in a business management class, and the teacher is reading out of a textbook about how to manage people. And I'm like, I do this, you know what I mean? Like, I learned more from doing. I need to be on the job site. I need to be actively doing it. Like, you can't just, teach cold calling out of a book. You got to pick up a phone and try it, right? And
love it. Love
so
it.
that's just how I learn. And I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's definitely kind of crazy, me really seeing things years later. Thankfully, I did it. But looking back, if it was my son, going through the same scenario, I mean, it's definitely not easy to, hear from somebody like, hey, I'm going to drop out of college. I mean, because it is, I see, like, I basically burned my ships. I didn't have anything to fall back on. I have my own efforts. I haven't earned a paycheck from somebody else, as an employee in, I don't know, 8 years. And I mean, that's crazy to think about. I've had to earn my own living, for 8 years.
Think of how many people you employ that you actually, put food on their table because you employ them. So it's not like you're not just receiving a paycheck from someone else. You're providing paychecks, which is awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I just don't. I can't even fathom being it any other way at this point.
So, wow. I mean, Henry, respect, man. Just respect through the roof for this guy, for what you've been able to do, for the attitude that you have, for the way you've built your team, for the way you built your business. And, now look at you, didn't finish college, you've got a multi-million-dollar, seven-figure business that you're building. And recently, you got exposed to the network marketing business through Simone, and you started building a team with network marketing. And certainly I know you're helping Simone with her team. So what did you see as far as network marketing similarities or things that attracted you towards the network marketing arena that might or might not fit the same mold that you have with real estate?
I think everybody's attracted to the thoughts of residual income. And, when someone starts, you think about it like this, right? And I know because, the financial services business is very similar to real estate, where you're on a constant grind. You have a constant and forever sales cycle. You need to keep bringing in money, right? It's not like one and done. And I'm not saying network marketing is one and done by any means, but you're building an organization technically one time. With real estate and financial services, you're rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding. You start from zero just about every day. And I feel like with network marketing, you're never at zero. You're building, you're constantly building on the efforts of previous, right? And it's really an eye opener, because it's funny how I've gotten so far along in this business where I wish I was in something that built like that years ago. And obviously, like, it's not too young for me to start, but it's just it's definitely a great business model.
Listen, you're absolutely right on target. It has so many similarities. I love real estate. I wrote a little ebook or guide on the 8 sources of residual income, which people can download at our website for free, just to see the different sources that are out there, because we love residual income in our family. That's why we call it the family business. And one of the ways that we talk about earning residual income is through real estate. Your background doesn't just include the real estate that you've been involved in, the transactions, 120 million plus in sales that have taken place, but it also says real estate investor. For our audience that might not know the difference between the two, can you give us a brief description of the difference between a real estate agent and someone who's a broker and a real estate investor?
Sure. So, I mean, the biggest difference is that a real estate agent or broker gets a transactional fee one time on an asset that you're helping somebody buy or sell, or lease or rent, right? And then an investor is somebody who is buying that asset and will receive the income of that asset, or occupy it, of course. But they're going to be the ones receiving the income on that asset for the rest of their life, as long as they own it.
Mm. So some of those transactions, are they mostly commercial, mostly residential, a combination of both?
Combination of both. Yeah, I do everything.
Are you familiar with REITs, real estate investment trusts?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think about those? These REITs, guys, for those of you that never heard of that, it's a way you can invest in real estate without actually taking title of a property, but you can be a partial investor and get a small piece of a piece of real estate. It's got some liquidity keys that you have to understand when you get involved in a REIT. But I think people are now more apt to want to have a small piece of real estate or a fractional piece of real estate through a REIT than maybe, have the chutzpah to go out and actually buy a property and invest in it that way, where all the risk is on you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I kind of joke with people, just any way, shape, and form that you can get invested in real estate, you should do so. I think REITs are definitely an opportunity for somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot of capital, or just wants, maybe has a few million in a retirement account and just wants a super passive, way of making money, and not, very, very low risk. However, I'm a big supporter of just buying it yourself. I mean, listen, like if you're going to spend 25 grand or, or whatever to go invest into a REIT, you might as well spend 25 grand and buy a duplex.
I love it. I love it. So
how tax write-offs and everything else too. I mean, like, it's not just the passive income.
So one is just is really, it's kind of like, would you describe it more like buying a stock or a bond or a mutual fund than actually being in real estate? Even though
I'd rather be in the S&P 500, to be honest with you, or an ETF around that instead of a REIT, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah. So I'm just trying to think of some of the other questions that people would be thinking of while we're doing this broadcast. You talked a lot about mindset in the beginning of this episode, and I wanted to kind of get back to that a little bit. Where do you see yourself going? I mean, you're still under the age of 30. You've got a long way to go, right? You've got a long trail ahead of you. Where do you see yourself going? What would you like to see happen over the next 5-10 years in your business?
So bigger goals around is really just buying a lot more real estate as rental property. I want to get into as big of properties as I possibly can.
Are you sort of in just one area in the Northeast in New Jersey, or do you have?
I'm just in New Jersey right now.
Okay.
That's it.
Do you see yourself expanding out of there? You obviously know the market very well in New Jersey, so that's obviously a big plus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely think that. Wherever the numbers make sense. I mean, there's obviously a lot of hot markets in Florida and Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, North South Carolina. There's a lot of good rental markets that we could target. I don't know those markets super well, just but I've been working on studying those markets, and like I've even learned, as time goes on, that you don't need to own 100% of it to be wealthy. And I've been partnering with people who know it better than I do, and I'm just in charge of a small sliver of tasks, and I own a piece, just like a REIT, but I'm actually a part owner, truly, of a larger asset, and I'm looking to do that definitely nationally over time. Attracting a lot more real estate agents into my organization, just like you built up a team of agents in the financial advisory business. I'm doing that in real estate, and I'm getting a lot more in the educational space with real estate. Helping people, teaching realtors, every single aspect of this business, social media, how to build a stable business, and keeping just having a lot of fun, and speaking around the country. Trying to get more into speaking.
Okay, that's perfect. I mean, that's exactly the direction that I was hoping you were going to go in, because I think that once you have done what you're doing, there's nothing more gratifying than being able to show other people how to do the same thing, and maybe not have some of the trials and tribulations you went through to get there, and kind of shortcut that and get paid for your knowledge and for your expertise and for your experience. So that's amazing. So having real estate in different parts of the country, is it tricky? I mean, it must be a little bit different. Do you have to hold multiple licenses in order to make that happen, or how does that work? You partner with people?
Yeah. So, when you start buying all over the country, what I realized, it's interesting, where it's like when a lot of people come to me about investing in real estate, it's funny how a lot of them at some point in the conversation go, so should I get my license? I'm like, no, you definitely don't need a real estate license to buy real estate. I even joke with people. I'm like, don't become an agent, just to buy, don't become a realtor just to buy real estate. There's no need for it. It
It's kind
definitely
of like
helps.
becoming an insurance agent to buy a life insurance policy. You don't have to do it as long as you're working with someone that you know and trust, and you're getting your goals met. It makes sense. So
Agreed.
I know that you're working with my daughter and kind of advising her on. She's got a desire to purchase a piece of real estate.
Yep.
And she's looking around right now. What advice do you give to someone that's never purchased real estate before, or only has purchased for their own, where they live, and they're trying to get involved in real estate for maybe building residual income? Anything that you could impart on this?
Sure. So I've been taught two ways. Number one is that if you have the wherewithal to get involved in large commercial real estate, 32 units or larger, do it. If you have the wherewithal and you have the money behind you and you're looking to get involved in real estate, the bigger the better. That is truly just like bare bones real estate. Some of the best advice I've ever been given when it comes to investment properties. The bigger the better, because you don't make, like, it's like when you're buying, because you really are buying a business, right? You're buying a business, and when you're buying smaller assets, which I own many of them, right? Because I'll talk about the second half in a second, but like when you buy bigger, there's a lot more money to go along, and it's harder to lose money in a much stronger asset. And truthfully, over time, those will be worth a lot more down the road. And you're dealing with a different buyer pool. Therefore, banks will also lend differently. It's a much different world. But if you're just talking investment wise, I definitely say bigger is better. Now, if you're like most of America, right, where you don't possibly have hundreds of thousands of dollars laying around, and we're just talking about getting started and buying real estate as soon as you possibly can, I definitely think buying a 2, 3, or 4 family property. There is unbelievable loan programs, and it's as simple as an FHA loan, 3.5% down, 30-year mortgage that you can start with to buy a 2, 3, or 4 unit property. Yes, you will have to claim residency for about a year minimum, right? And but the amount of money that you have to put down in relativity to what an asset's worth and what it will be worth and what it will bring in, you can't start off at any better of a foot. It's just it is the best first investment possible. I mean, I tell everybody, if you have not bought a property yet, if it is your first time purchasing a property, and you have any inkling of possibly investing in real estate, buy a 2, 3, or 4 family. You will be so freaking grateful you did that. So like right now, I live in still one of my multifamilies. I have a 4-unit property in an amazing downtown that I love. I was there all the time anyways. And I knew that the first property that I wanted to buy for myself was a 4 family, right? Because the FHA loan, you could buy 2 to 4 units. Anything under 4 and under is still considered residential. So you can get residential mortgages, which are really the cheapest that you can get. So long story short, I bought a for sale by owner 4 family property in this beautiful downtown. I paid $750 for it. I paid 3.5% down. And I got a few lender credits because I'm close friends with the mortgage guy. So anyways, I was out of pocket maybe $35,000 total for a $750,000 property, right? So super low down payment. My mortgage payment's about $5,000 a month. My tenants bring in $4,000 a month, and it's extremely under rented, by the way. So I pay $1,000 a month to live in a $750,000 asset. And now I'm about to refinance it for a value of $950,000. I've only owned it, I've had this property for, not even a year yet, right? This property, I mean, again, like I have $200,000 in equity, or a little over 200 grand in equity. And after my refinance, my mortgage payment will only be 42 to 4250 a month. And after I raise the rents, I mean, this property with those 3 tenants, will bring in, over $5 grand a month.
So you're going to be in a positive cash flow situation. Let's go back over this just real quick. Again, we have to unpack this because this is great, guys. You might have to go back and listen to this podcast a couple of times to take notes. But so if it's under a 4 family, you can get an FHA loan.
Yes. The
down payment is ridiculously low from a percentage standpoint, right? It's in a desirable area. Obviously, real estate, they always say location, location, locations in a desirable area. So that was on your side.
Yep.
You also mentioned that if you can go big, 32 units or more. What is there a magic number, 32 for some reason?
No, that's just the number that I was taught on. Grant Cardone is a huge mentor of mine.
Okay.
And he talks about the number he always said was 32 units. just because, once you start hitting numbers like that, the multiple.
The numbers are on your side. The
The
numbers
numbers
start
are
to
silly
work.
because when he was running numbers the other day on a property on a live stream, and he was talking about how, like, if you just increase the rents on every unit $400 on a 32 unit property because they were under rented, you increase your value $2 million to a bank.
Wow.
So it's just like the infinite amount of money that you can generate on these larger assets you're just talking a whole different scale of money.
There's just nothing like it. And by the way, in your situation right now, even though you're paying $1,000, which is nothing for
Really
where
paying
you live,
principal.
right? Even though you're paying that, you're depreciating that entire property. Your tax savings alone are greater than what you're paying monthly. I'm sure. I mean, obviously, I've never seen your taxes, but I am pretty sure you're in a positive cash flow situation with the tax break you're going to get through depreciation and all the things that you have to do in order to maintain the property. Which leads me to my final question about real estate, and then I'm going to ask you one more question before we close. But my final question about real estate is, most people, myself included, don't want to be involved in real estate in a 2 or 3 or 4 family like you described for one reason and one reason only. They don't want to become a handyman. They don't want to be the person that gets the call, the toilet's leaking at 3 o'clock in the morning. How do you coach those people to get them to see past that?
So I look at it like this, right? If you're buying a property and you have tenants, I am more than happy when and to be blunt, tenants really fast. Tenants don't want to talk to you just as much as you don't want to talk to them, right? Like, they have absolutely zero interest in randomly calling you for anything that is not a major thing most of the time, right? And the messages that I've ever gotten from tenants are small enough things, or in relativity, where I could just send a screenshot to my contractor who handles it. My contractor and property manager. I just screenshot it together in a group text together, and they handle everything. I don't have to deal with it.
So hire a property manager.
So yes and no. I mean, listen, your contractor, until you have enough units, it doesn't financially make sense to pay a property manager. But, like, listen, if you have under 10 units, I mean, or even under 20 units, I mean, it's just really, it's just the paperwork that might be a pain in the ass. But if you have a good realtor who can basically do all the tenancy stuff for you, or a good attorney, most of it's handled.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you hire someone that just works, per job, if you have a handyman that, you can, and they're out there, right? You can find someone. My brother-in-law, my wife's brother, happens to be extremely handy. And whenever I have a project at my house that is just a little bit past me, I can call him, and, he can come over and he can show me exactly what to do.
You don't want me swinging a hammer. Right?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I can swing a hammer if I have to, but usually the nail bends. But at the same token, I can fix things if I have to. But I understand it's not something. It's a fear that we all have to get past if we want to get to that residual income that you talk about. Yeah, okay, last question for you.
It definitely is not as complicated or complex or as much of a stress as everybody makes it out to be.
Love it. So you can get past that hurdle. So this last question is not about real estate. We would like to know, and I typically try to get this information up front, but I didn't today. So I'm going to ask you at the end, sure. What does a day in the life of Henry look like? When do you get up? What do you do? Are you into exercise? Do you look great? Do you eat right? What is a typical day to get a full day out of you? What do you have to do in order to make that happen? What's your days look like?
So it used to be this crazy thing where I wake up at 3:30 in the morning and, have this crazy routine every morning. And, I'd be on the phones for 16 hours a day, whatever. Recently, it's more being extremely focused on what fulfills me, right? I don't have a set, like every morning, the only part of my actual set schedule that I make sure is the same every day that really drives my companies is I have a number of meetings between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. every day. And then between 9:30 and about 12 noon, give or take an hour or two in either direction, I make all my sales calls where I keep my business flowing every day. I call all my professional partners who refer me a lot of business. I call all my leads that I got to follow up with. But to be honest, like there used to be this super strict routine every day was, like I had it so calculated throughout the day where I would go nuts. But now, with my fiance, and now I just got a dog and all these other things in my life, where like, I've just realized that I've gotten to a financial point where I'm definitely not satisfied, but making sure that I'm fulfilled personally matters a lot more than making
Sure.
a few sales calls.
Sure.
So I spend like a lot of my time making sure that she's happy, and making sure I spend a lot of personal time on those things. But also, I'm a night owl, so she goes to bed at 9:30, and then from like 9:30 to 2 in the morning, I like to be redesigning my website, my landing pages. I like to be looking for my investment deals, structuring new investments, messing around in spreadsheets, basically doing all my investment work at night.
That's awesome. Wow. Full days, man. I will tell you, one of the things that you just said is, and every successful person I've ever interviewed or talked to says the same thing. They have a routine and they're very consistent with their routine. And, you make people happy, Henry. You're a people pleaser. You're always trying to do the right thing by people. And I know that, Simone is no exception to that. And obviously you're not gonna be able to make her happy. You're going to make yourself happy, and she's going to be happy because she's by your side. And you're just doing all the right things to be respectful and generous like you normally are. Great interview. I'm so glad we got a chance to do this. I know this is going to be one of our most popular episodes. So thank you for being on the Family Business Podcast. And if people need to get in touch with you about real estate, how do they get in touch with you, Henry?
Two ways. You can either literally Google me, any platform. It's just my full name, Henry Eisenstein, HenryEisenstein, or listen, text me. I don't care if you have my cell phone number, 908-216-6532. Reach out.
All right, we'll put that in the show notes so they have that information. They can just click the link and they can get in touch with you. Henry, thank you so much for taking the time out to be on our podcast today. We look forward to having you again on in the future.
Thank you so much, Murray. I appreciate it.
All right, man.